Hi, I'm Andrew Flushy, your Virginia traffic, misdemeanor, and DUI attorney. Today we're going to conclude my series on new laws you need to know about for right now, talking about marijuana. Check out the rest of the playlist for other laws that you may be interested in learning about, but the marijuana law is a major change for criminal justice in Virginia. Good or bad, this is happening. The governor hasn't signed it yet, but he's likely to, and it would take effect on July 1. So don't go out and buy marijuana yet. First of all, the important thing to know is it is not legal to possess marijuana in Virginia once the law takes effect. It simply decriminalizes it. So what does that mean? Well, currently still, Virginia says that it is a misdemeanor to possess even residue of marijuana. So as long as they can detect an amount of marijuana that you're in possession of, it's an unclassified misdemeanor for your first offense, but it's a crime. The new law, once it takes effect, would basically say that it's only a civil penalty. And the penalty is only up to a $25 fine, period. That's all they can give you is a $25 fine for every offense. So you could basically every single day sit out in front of the courthouse smoking a joint, and all they can do is give you a ticket for 25 bucks. The new law also says that they actually can't even impose court costs, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But there's not even any court costs to be imposed, which usually is about $70, depending on the charge. And so that wouldn't even be imposed. So it's just literally $25 ticket for marijuana. The other important part is, under the current law for Virginia, if you're found guilty of possessing marijuana, they do have to suspend your driver's license for 6 months. But under the new law, if it is enacted and becomes law, it would not require any license suspension. So again, it's just a $25 ticket for simple possession of marijuana, and it's a civil violation. Where it gets really interesting and frankly a little bit scary, depending on your perspective, is under the record sealing provision of the law. Essentially, what the statute says, if it's enacted the way it's written, is that all prior marijuana possession cases would be sealed for most uses, basically for employment uses, for educational uses. It would actually be forbidden for an employer or an educational institution to ask someone if they have a prior marijuana arrest, charge, or conviction. And it's actually a misdemeanor for the employer to ask that question. And so there's lots of provisions around that. It's actually quite detailed part of the statute that seals prior marijuana things from the criminal history. Now, some categories of people and institutions can get access to it. So for example, the criminal justice system essentially can see that on the record. So Commonwealth attorneys, police departments, things like that, when they're investigating someone, they can see those things on the record. If a person is applying to be a police officer or a volunteer, sort of auxiliary at the sheriff's office, those departments can get access to that information. But John Q. Public, who's interviewing for a job somewhere, we can't ask that information, if you're trying to interview candidates for a job or for education. What's unclear to me is housing. I don't see in the statute anything about housing, something like that. So like a landlord might still be able to ask those questions if they wanted. So that's something that people need to be aware of on both sides, is basically what parts of your record are protected that people shouldn't be asking about, and what parts people can ask about, just so you know. And frankly, you need to be truthful. And landlords and employers and things need to know so they're not exposed to criminal liability. Like I said, it's a misdemeanor if you ask the wrong question about marijuana. So if you have any types of applications that you're processing, that's the key part that you need to be aware of, is things you can and can't ask. So to recap, marijuana, if it's enacted, it's not enacted yet, and once it takes effect, it would be July 1 if it's enacted the way it's written. Essentially, marijuana would be decriminalized. It's only a $25 civil penalty. There's no loss of license. There's no court costs. It's just a ticket. But there's important provisions that protect the criminal history from past marijuana cases and, of course, future ones. And so that's something that both, people who've had marijuana issues in the past and people who may be interviewing or reviewing applications involving these things, both people need to be aware of the limits and the criminal liabilities for overstepping the limits. So there's other videos in this playlist you can check out for other videos about new laws taking effect in Virginia. This is in 2020. and hopefully we'll continue this. There's some other interesting new laws that you may want to be aware of.